Hello, it is 6:04. I call this meeting to order. We've got four of us here tonight: Ted Gergen, myself, Dana Powers, Steve Brown, Jack Nicolai. I'm assuming that Nick is running late, but as of right now, he is absent, I guess. Administration present. Not Marquez. So we have Dr. Connie Valenza. We have Judy Mrachkowski. Thank you. Patty Fitzgerald and Ryan Sandberg. And visitors present, please make sure that you've signed in by the other door, and I'll take a motion on the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as written.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. And go ahead, Steve.
I move that we go into closed session in the middle school library pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where, according to paragraph B, applies which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations. And these include the following four: student discipline review, individual student programming review, staff discipline review, and individual staff performance review. And also Wisconsin Statute 19.851E, which is deliberating or conducting other specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Jack?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Dana, aye. Ted? Say your own name.
Aye.
And we are now in closed. Thank you. Okay, we are back in open, and then I will accept any motions.
I move to approve the amended contract with Dousman Transportation, which will provide a $2 per hour raise that goes directly to the drivers due to staff shortages and other concerns that exist with the transportation provider right now.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
Right, and he will write that up and give it to you
Yes, the
directly,
longest
right?
motion.
That
No,
was very comprehensive.
it had to be said.
Improvising.
Hey, come on, come on.
Oh, it's not even on, okay. Okay, I move to adjourn our closed, or, special, there you go. I move to adjourn our special board meeting at 7:03 PM.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and our special board meeting has adjourned. Are we ready? Okay, good.
And all those notes will go to you, Diane, from me or from
Yes.
Connie?
Okay, I call our regular school board meeting to order at 7:04. We've got all of us here tonight. We've got Nick Poloni, Ted Gergen, myself, Dana Powers, Steve Brown, and Jack Nicolai. No members are absent tonight. Administration present, we have Connie Valenza, Marquez Guzman, Judy Marachkowski, Patty Fitzgerald, and Ryan Sandberg. Visitors, please make sure that you sign in at the door and stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take a motion on the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as written.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, President's report. We are in the middle of our district administrator search. Our next meeting is on Wednesday at 5 p.m. It will be a closed session where we will be reviewing with our search provider the applications that came in. Just friendly reminder to the board, we did receive a document in particular that Dan suggested that we go through the resumes and items with. And then also to review those listing of interview questions. So it'll just speed up our meeting on Wednesday if we go through all those. I think that's really it. Does anybody have any questions? I know Dan's been really good at communicating and details and everything. Questions? Great. So then we'll see you on Wednesday.
The only thing I have is just an update on the election information, that the candidates for the school board election appearing on the ballot for the upcoming spring election are, in this order, Ted Gergen and Steve Brown. And a reminder to everyone to vote on April 5th of 2022. That's all I have. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Steve.
All right, I'd like to present the treasurer's report dated January 2022. We'll take a look here. The general fund cash account has a balance of $815,583.40. Credit cards, $16,036.64. EBC Flex and HRA cash account, $4,185.98. Capital Improvement Fund, which is Fund 46, there's a balance remaining of $2,082,357.39. Petty cash, $200. LGIP, $2,156,813.69. That's a grant asset total for January of 22, $5,075,177.10. To move to approve the treasurer's report dated January 2022 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Take a look here of the payment of accounts payable bills dated January 13th, 2022 through February 17th, 2022. This includes checks numbered 70807 through 70916 and 202100518 through 202100583. Total of the checks is $643,492.03. You might have noticed there are some checks up above those numbers, and those are just refunds that are charged back later on in the sequence of check numbers that exist. I'd like to move to approve the payment of accounts payable bills from 1/13/22 through 2/17/22.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Do you have a set of minutes from the regular board meeting on 1/18 as printed or amended?
Feels like forever ago. Wow.
Tell me about it.
I don't need to tell you.
I motion to approve the minutes of the regular school board meeting dated 1/18/2022 as printed and or amended.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just have to add a note here, that was so long ago that it was at a time where we were looking at 45 positive COVID cases.
And how many do we have now?
active, And we have 0.
Are you serious?
How many, I'm sorry?
Serious.
0, wow.
At this time. So
It's awesome.
crazy what a month can bring.
That's great news. Okay, so we are on public comments, right?
Yep.
Okay. Does it say? Okay. Okay, so you have 3. Are you going to be making public comment? Okay. Then I won't go through my whole spiel. Did we get anything in the? Okay, great. Okay, moving right along.
So it's that time of year to look at the 2022-2023 school year calendar proposal. We typically work pretty closely with Central because many of our families are the same, get a kind of an understanding as to what their calendar is and then try and build ours off of theirs. This year is a little different because Westosha Central received a waiver to start before September 1. So in the state of Wisconsin, in order for a school district to start before September 1st, they need to get an approved waiver from DPI to do so. So they were able to do that. So they were starting on Monday, actually, of that week prior to September 1 for construction reasons. And that waiver was granted to them. So we have developed a calendar that follows that. And again, will be dependent on approval of that waiver from DPI. In doing that, like I said, we use last year's format as a base related to professional development. We use the Westosha Central calendar as a base. And just so you're aware, Westosha and Wilmot actually work pretty closely on their calendars as well. We sent a survey to all staff allowing them to share, this time not a vote on the calendar, but just share if they had concerns or suggestions anonymously. We had 5 staff members only that responded to that out of a pretty significant number of staff. As I mentioned, it does start 2 days prior to September 1st, so we'll need a DPI waiver to do that. So a motion option could be to approve the 2022-2023 school year calendar as presented, pending approval of DPI for school start date waiver.
Do you see them not approving it? And why wouldn't they?
Well, because the goal is not to have any school districts start before September 1. It's a little questionable because it does say that it should be extenuating circumstances. We'll put in our waiver that it could also be related to construction. The referendum passes, even if the referendum does not pass, we still have some fairly significant, school construction improvement projects that will need to be completed. And by getting us kind of on that schedule where we're out early that June 3rd, it gives you a larger window during the summer to accomplish those. And also, obviously, because of shared families, shared transportation, keeping the calendar somewhat close because the vast majority of our students also go to Central. So I'm hopeful, but there's no guarantee that we would do that.
Well, if we were all for example, it was QSD and one school needed that for this purpose, all the districts would start on the same day, I would guess, right?
Correct.
So in our proximity,
Right.
being so close without being a unified school district, but with the mindset that we kind of are in a weird way, it'd be interesting for them to deny it, I would think.
Especially considering that our families will be, I mean, it isn't just even within the district, it's that our families are very, very connected. However, I mean, again, to say, is it extreme extenuating circumstances? It's a little bit of a train of thought in terms of, it talks a lot about extenuating circumstances, but we've also heard that as long as it's not more than a week early, they tend to approve that. So we're really only talking 2 days early. That could help us because it's only 2 days. That could hurt us, and they could say, what do you care about 2 days? Sit down and be quiet. I mean, it could go both ways on that. We do have, if we get into requesting a waiver, I can share a little bit about what my thoughts would be if the waiver would not be granted, so.
I motion to approve the 2022-2023 school year calendar as presented pending approval of DPI for school start date waiver.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We have a little time to get that waiver. I know our families are very interested in knowing what our calendar is, but last year we got it out in March, so we're still okay for last year.
Surprisingly had a ton of people ask when we're putting this out. Never have I ever had that, but yeah.
Planning.
So speaking of the request for school start date waiver, we have to apply to DPI for a waiver, and if the board approves that, I will do so. If not approved, we would need to add in 2 additional school days unless we want to go into the second week in June, and my guess is that people won't be thrilled with that idea. So some options include October 28th. That is a day that would be very handy. It's kind of timed nicely for staff to get a little bit of a break there. January 2nd, obviously our staff would like to have that. That's the Monday after winter break. Or January 27th, again, kind of a nice break in that kind of difficult winter time. But those would be some options if DPI would not approve that. So I'll kind of leave that up to the board if they want to make a decision as to an option now, or if they want to bring that back next month, for example, if DPI does not approve it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so then a motion option could be to approve a resolution to request a school start day waiver by 2 days due to potential construction and inability to align family calendars with Westosha Central.
I move to approve the resolution to request a school start date waiver by 2 days due to potential construction and ability to align family calendars with Westosha Central.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Beat you. You did.
You guys are crushing it.
We have a physical education teacher resignation mid-year. This would be Drew Cox. Drew was hired at the beginning of the 2020-2021 school year. His resignation request was actually effective February 9th, 2022. It is only the board that can officially approve that, but he has not been here since then. We have a need to place a long-term substitute for the remainder of the year. At this point, we did actually post it on Weekend. Ideally, it would be nice to hire someone permanent, for example, a midterm graduate. But if we're not able to do that, it would be a long-term substitute for the remainder of the year. The motion option would be to approve a resignation effective February 9th, 2022, and assess liquidated damages in the amount of, the board would determine that. The contract specifies a maximum of $3,000.
I move to approve the resignation effective February 9th of 2022 and assess liquidated damages in the amount of $1,500 since tomorrow is March the 1st.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We have a grade level teacher leave request. Andrea Schamberg is our first grade teacher. She began with the Salem School District in the 2017-2018 school year. She's requesting leave for the 2022-2023 school year for child rearing reasons. She understands that if this were granted, Although she would be able to return to a position, it may not be at the exact same grade level. And so she is aware and understands that. The motion option would be to approve her request for a 1-year leave of absence for child rearing reasons. You could, if the board chose to do that, could also add in there pending finding a suitable replacement. But at this point, we have some time to be able to do that, so.
I move to approve Andrea Schamberg's request for a 1-year leave of absence for child rearing reasons.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So now on to the fun and sad stuff. You will notice quite a span of years there. So Teresa Borndahl, one of our paraprofessionals, hired 25 years ago. She is requesting a retirement for the end of the 2021-2022 school year. Prior to getting hired in Salem, she actually volunteered in the library before getting hired and worked with our Battle of the Book teams and was a craft club leader as well. The motion option could be to reluctantly accept Mrs. Borndahl's retirement request, along with expressing thanks for her years of service to the Salem School District and providing retirement benefits for which she is eligible. As you recall, we this year approved a retirement benefit based on the number of days that they had accrued of sick leave available.
I move to reluctantly accept Mrs. Borndahl's retirement request, along with expressing thanks for her many years of service to the Salem School District and providing retirement benefits for which she is eligible.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
We have another long-term paraprofessional. Susan Gigliotti, one of our paraprofessionals, hired in 1995. Was a previous craft club leader, past girls softball and track coach. Her request is also to retire at the end of the 2021-2022 school year. So again, the motion option to reluctantly accept Mrs. Gigliotti's retirement request, along with expressing thanks for her years of service to the Salem School District and providing retirement benefits for which she is eligible.
I move to reluctantly accept Mrs. Gigliotti's retirement request, along with expressing thanks for her many years of service to the Salem School District and providing retirement benefits for which she is eligible.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And motion carries.
We have another long-term.
Gosh, look at her hair.
I remember that.
It's hilarious.
Somebody I've gotten to know very well over the last 3 years. She's always made sure I knew exactly how things should be around here in a very kind and funny way. She wanted me to share with you that when she came to the district, she was aware of a book called Mrs. McBloom, Clean Up Your Classroom. And it is about a teacher whose classroom was so filled with things from over the years that nobody thought that they could possibly move her out. And it took the entire community to come in and help sort through. And they found things in the classroom that people thought had been missing for years and years and years. And they sold it all in a big garage sale, and she went off on a big splashy cruise. Mrs. Stanek wanted me to assure you she was not planning on going on to a big splashy cruise, but she was reluctantly planning to clean up her classroom to be able to hand it over to the next person. Referring to some of the stories in the books, she signs the book saying to whippersnappers up yonder Salem grade school, use your noggins to do good things. Love, Mrs. Stanek, 1989 to 2022. She was hired in 1989. She's taught at several grade levels at Salem, 6th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. She's had numerous student teachers. She actually has had lots of conversations with me about her desire to help support new teachers in being successful in the future. She previously taught summer school. Big shock to anyone who knows her. She was a past cheerleading coach, right? And her request is for the end of the 2021-2022 school year. So a motion option to reluctantly accept Mrs. Stanik's retirement request, along with expressing thanks for her years of service to the Salem School District and providing retirement benefits for which she is eligible.
I move to reluctantly accept Mrs. Stanik's retirement request, along with expressing thanks for her years of service. It's hard. She was there almost as long as I was. To the Salem School District and providing retirement benefits for which she is eligible.
Second.
I just completely lost track of words. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
So on to more mundane things. Second Friday in January, pupil count report. This is the second. There's always 2 times, one being third Friday at the beginning of the school year and then second Friday in January. Good news is that we are actually up students, so 17 students total up since the September count, which is very good news for our district. The motion option would be to accept the second Friday pupil count for submission to DPI as presented.
I move to accept the second Friday pupil count for submission to DPI as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
So if you recall, a while ago, the administrative team brought some handbook change recommendations to the board, and after a fair amount of discussion and I won't say inability, but we weren't able to come to kind of a conclusion on some of them, and the board asked us to go back and kind of study and discuss. And one of the provisions that the board did not at that time approve had to do with the additional IEP meetings that our teachers were involved in, both after school, before school, and during their prep times. Especially, for example, our special ed teachers, speech and language, our counselors, and are involved in many. There was a recognition that our general teachers were also involved in more and could be covered by other options. Our present handbook language talked about after a certain number that presently it is at 6, so that at the 7th they would receive compensation. Our recommendation was to move that down to 4, so starting with the 5th they would. But in taking it back to our group, we spent a lot of time talking about it. You know, is it prep time? Is it before school? Is it after school? How many meetings? How does that work? And how do we keep track of all that? And who keeps track of all that? And we kind of came to the conclusion that for special education teachers and pupil services staff, meaning counselors, psychologists, and social worker, we were faced with a couple realities, one of which is they were part of a lot of meetings requiring a lot of payroll and bookkeeping. And secondly, they were in positions that were very difficult to fill. And knowing that it is not unusual for some districts to actually compensate those employees at a higher rate because of those large number of meetings. So in the end, we settled on a recommendation that would be to provide a $1,500 annual stipend to all of our special education teachers and pupil services staff, again, counselors, psychologists, social worker, to serve as compensation for the additional meetings outside of typical school hours, and to provide a compensation incentive for hard-to-fill positions. So again, it would be for all of those different positions. The first half of the year, $750, and then the second half of the year, $750. So it would go retroactive back to the school year for those employees in that position. For other staff, the compensate, and this would be also cover 504s, because oftentimes social workers in the school, a psychologist would be leading some of those 504 meetings. For other staff, the compensation recommendation would still drop that, going from after the 6th to after the 4th meeting would include 504 meetings and before school meetings. In the past, it only related to after school meetings. The leadership team will continue to look at the handbook and make additional recommendations for the 2022-2023 school year, but these particular changes would apply to this school year. So the motion option, it's cut off, would be to approve the recommended changes to the employee handbook as presented.
A rough idea of how, like, dollars that we're talking about, like comprehensive package here?
So about $40,000. Is that kind of where we?
Yeah, $40,000.
Again, depending on the total number, but, again, it's not uncommon for some districts to have those hiring incentives for those unique, kind of hard to fill positions. And with a kind of a chipping away here and there and all the different meetings, there is that additional compensation for those meetings anyway. This takes a lot of that kind of smaller bookkeeping away and timesheet recording and trying to keep track of all those different meetings, provides kind of an incentive for that staff to do that. And
It's not $35,000 new money. It's like, because some of that's already there.
some of it's already,
right?
is
Like,
already
it's-
being spent.
We're already paying that out at this point.
But it
To some
could be
extent,
some, I mean, some of it could be, it is definitely a way of providing additional compensation for those people. But it also could be a factor in retaining staff in those positions that are difficult to fill as well.
I move to approve the recommended changes to the handbook provisions for the IEP 504 as presented and amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
We have a little bit of a referendum update. We're coming down fast on about a month left to go here. It has been definitely a challenge. I mean, obviously the shutting down school last week, the issues with the really high COVID numbers earlier this school year. So we're coming down fast, but I think we've got some good things in place. I think the most exciting is we're ready to send out tomorrow our referendum website link to our families. There's some really cool stuff on there. I'm always kind of moving and shaking, so I already have someone to as a parent, represent on one of our videos that will be soon released. Go back here.
Must jump for like 2 or 3. There you go.
So you can see our new, we'll have a separate kind of website that they can click off of ours to go directly to get all the information that they're going to want to know about our referendum. As you can see, there's multiple ways to do that. One is we have like an overview, and I'll scroll down in a minute, the tax information, the different projects that are a part of that, important files that, for example, the ballot and things like that, and then frequently asked questions, which we're working on. So it's not completely ready to go tonight. Hopefully by tomorrow it will be. You can see that we have Academy Award winning performance.
Can't wait.
Do you dance?
I won't do this. I'll just go into it a little bit before we... Thank you for joining me today. My name is Connie Valenza, and I'm privileged to be the district administrator for the Salem School District. We're going to be talking about our upcoming April 5th, 2022 referendum. It's a very important referendum for us here at the school district, for our families, for our staff, and for our community. And we want to make sure that you have all the information that you need to make an informed choice. This is what I like to refer to as the extended play version, so it'll take a little while as we go through all of the various aspects of the referendum. But I appreciate you coming along with me as we talk about a building that I know very well, but understand that a lot of community members may not know quite as well. So again, our referendum question, April 5th, 2022. And as you can see from the chart that I have here, the district faces a pretty significant revenue drop-off at the end of the school year. The 2019 referendum that our community very graciously voted yes to has gone through these last 3 years, but it does expire at the end of the school year. So putting that on pause, you can see we've included some parent feedback that we got from our survey that we put out. For example, this parent says, these are the facts. We have extreme needs to update and renovate. Our facilities need to meet the needs of the community, our students, and help our teaching staff to facilitate teaching 21st century skills. We can best serve our students and community by creating a learning environment that is inclusive, adaptable, relevant now, and designed with the future in mind. So throughout this website, you'll see different little parent quotes in that we have. And then the goal, as you go down, April 5th, 2022 is about, you can see our different areas: retaining outstanding staff, maintaining low class sizes, and improving instruction. Once it's all said and done, each of the pages that you go to will have kind of a summary of what that is. We'll be putting a video in along with that, kind of generalizing and then adding some of the things that go into that particular area. Take a look at maintaining our facilities. You can see kind of the summary. We'll be attaching the facility study that we had done by PRA, looking at some of the different building segments, looking at the different priority items, and then including some lovely pictures of the hump. This is the area that we've obviously included in our overall plan that would be demolished. And then kind of showing a rendering of what that would look like once that were to happen. So again, then going back, looking at improving accessibility.
Connie, one of the questions that previous slide about the number of doors we have in the overall building. How many doors do we have?
27 that are marked. So, yes, so what you're referring to, if you go, so I'll get to the facility safer. The maintaining our facilities is more the kind of the recommendations from the facility study. The improving accessibility, so this one is an area that actually is kind of completed, where we actually have our little video. We got some kids involved on this one. Thank you for joining us to learn more about our upcoming referendum questions. My name is Connie Valenza, and I'm proud to be the district administrator of the Salem School District. One of the questions on the April 5th ballot asks for $18.3 million for facility improvements. An important aspect of this question asks our community to assist us in making our facility accessible to our students, families, staff, and community fans. This is just one of several forthcoming videos that brings you inside our facility so you can see for yourself. Welcome to the Salem School District. Let me first share with you the journey that one of our primary students takes to get to music class.
Are you still there?
Now let me share the journey that one of our students with disabilities has to take by themselves in order to get to music class.
So this is the crazy part to me when you look at what our students who may have a disability have to do just to get to music class. At this point, they're about halfway there. I have to go through the gym.
What was that kid doing?
So to me, that's really very compelling when you think about, so now finally that student would be to their music classroom.
That's the first tune.
So I won't go through the whole thing, but I do want to show. So now this would be a community member that needs to get to our business office. So Diane did a great job on this one. That's how polite Diane and I are with each other. In our
This is
animals.
Academy Award stuff.
Roll out the red carpet.
So let's say this would be a community member who's coming to do something up in the business office.
So I gotta go up there? No, we have to go outside. So I'm gonna go outside and follow the sidewalk around to the business office, and then I will meet you up at the business office to help you with. Okay, right now,
Let's separate here.
A little view of Midstate. So again, I think, you know, that idea of kind of when you're looking at it from this perspective, it's crazy. But that's what our community members would go through to go to our business office right now.
I wanted to see Diane again.
Should have a yellow brick road.
She didn't forget it while you ended.
I think she may have. I don't know.
So then we have, for example, making our facilities safer, where we're looking at some of the separation doors and the automatic door locking system and that type of thing. We have the page on improving outdoor learning and play areas, and we
How
try
many doors? You said 27.
27 doors. Yep. So yeah, you can see a significant change in our families would see, would be no more pebbles brought home in the shoes and in the pockets. But I think one of the things that, we're going to be doing a video on this, using some of our kids in that as a part of it. But when you look at, for example, our facilities and what we have available for our kids, and then you take a look at what some other districts are able to provide in terms of those safe facilities that are accessible for students that, for example, have disabilities, the outdoor kind of learning and play areas that would be a part of that. That's all part of that area. So just going back to what Steve was referring to, so the making our facilities safer, you take a look, you can see the different areas. We have the 27 different doors in terms of being able to enter the building. That idea of not having separation doors, which is one of the things that we really struggled with when we were going through, for example, a lockdown, is it's very difficult to prevent somebody walking through all of the different areas of the building. And kind of the separation door and the automatic door locking would create a scenario where you could shut down sections of your building immediately if there was some sort of an emergency. And then just also, even in terms of a fire suppression, fire sprinkler system would be all part of the updated school safety improvements that would come out of that. And then the outdoor learning and play areas, the adding and improving STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, and math. This is an area where not only are we looking at adding an additional lab area, so right now, if you take a look at the picture that you have here, that is one of our science labs for 7th grade, where it's literally just a teacher station, so the students don't have that ability to engage in those types of experiments. This would add an additional lab, so we'd have one for each of the different 3 grade levels at the middle school, but it also adds then these kind of makerspace, outdoor kind of indoor-outdoor lab areas. You can see where I have Discovery Makerspace. That was the family consumer ed and tech ed rooms, so those would become more student lab spaces. One that to me seems like it could really be a nice addition. If you think about back where the garage doors are in the back, making that kind of an indoor-outdoor lab, for example, to do some robotics work or some of the makerspace type activities for students. And those would be areas, the 2 areas I'm talking about now, that would be available for all grade levels. So for example, if your 2nd grade is working on something in that area, doing some of that more building and designing and working collaboratively on different projects, they actually have access then to those types of spaces as well under this plan. You can see there's an example of, this is actually the artist rendering of our garage doors right now that we have, and turning that into kind of more of an in and out lab, so that students, you could, like let's say you're working on something robotics and the weather is nice, you could literally open up that section of the building to the outdoors and have the students working both in the building and outside the building in kind of a larger open space to do those type of activities. And then we have the last 2 areas, being fiscally responsible to our taxpayers. So you can see that concept of that this is a non-increase in the overall levy for our families related to that. You can see our historical mill rate on there. That idea of the tax levy remaining the same, just how that tax levy comes in looking a little different. Sharing kind of that concept of the 2022, meaning 2-question referendum, being less than or equal to the 2019 1 question. So you can see going across that where we were set in 21, 22 would then be maintained going forward, even if both questions pass, so that it's that not an actual increase to the levy in order to be able to do the 2 different questions. So lots of stuff on there. I'm hopeful that our community members will have an opportunity to at least go in and probably not sit through all of them, but to get a little bit of a feel for some of the different areas in our referendum. We'll be finishing up some of those videos and sending some of the shorter ones out on Facebook so that people can take a look at them. Connections to our website so that people can look at some of the frequently asked questions, for example. But lots of stuff on there, I think, that will be very helpful and beneficial. And so when are we meeting tomorrow for you to do that video? That I kind of twisted his arm about just a little bit ago. But again, the idea to try and get our teachers involved in some of the videos, our families involved in some of the videos, and use some of the information from them. This next week, we have staff meetings in smaller groups going this weekend into the next. I'm going to just jump forward because we'll want to talk about some information session dates, how many of those we should have and when those should be. Potentially some community-wide mailings. One of the things that I spend a ton of time in that back parking lot, some parent handout leaflets for our families so that they can peruse them while they're waiting to pick up their kids. Some social media messages, but I wanted to ask the board, how many like information session did you think we should do? You know, inviting community members in to take a, tour, for example, of the building and see some of the different information. And what were some good kind of days to do that? I don't think the board needs to be there, but just kind of your thoughts on that particular topic. And then if there's anything else that you wanted us to be thinking about related to the upcoming referendum.
Connie, one of the questions that I was asked by someone was, why are we having the other 2 questions? So
one of the things on that website will be the frequently asked questions, and that is one of them that we'll be addressing. Again, the concept of a operating referendum doesn't allow you to borrow money. It can only be an actual operating and expended in a given year. So any long-term facility planning is really kind of impossible under just an operating referendum. You can do maintenance, you can do minor improvements or, addressing, but to do any significant improvement, you would need to do a bonding referendum. That being said, just doing a bonding referendum would be good for our facilities, but it doesn't address our operating needs, which right now, as we've shared previously, the district needs at least right about a $1.5 million annually addition above the revenue cap just to meet payroll, to keep the lights on, to do all of those things that are traditional operating expenses. So if we just did a bonding referendum, it would be great for our facilities, but it wouldn't address things like class size or instructional improvement or those different aspects. If we just did the operating referendum, it doesn't give you that opportunity to provide long-term kind of facility visioning and making sure, yes, you can probably repair a boiler from time to time under that scenario, maybe a roof once in a while, but it doesn't give you any long-term maintenance ability or building ability. And so as the board went through their conversations, it was really about, we can't kind of keep chipping away around the edges. I think one of the things that's very unique about Salem is that if you take a look at that map from the aerial view, that really small sliver that runs down the front of the building on Highway 83 makes this look like it's a really updated newer building. And that is probably less than 10% of our overall facility, but I refer to it as kind of being a false storefront, if you will, that really covers what is a huge site, many, many different additions with lots of maintenance needs. And by going just with an operating referendum, you lose that ability to address some of those more significant needs.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions from the board? Okay. So reminding the community, please vote April 5th, 2022. On our website, we'll also be having where people can go to vote and election information on that as well. So I'm going to turn it over to our resident ESSER 3 expert to give a little bit of an update.
Yeah, so I feel like I always come at the end of the meeting when everybody wants to go home, and so I have a pressure to keep it short and sweet. So yeah, I just wanted to provide a little update on this ESSER 3 grant that we received. So the American Rescue Plan, or ARP, was the third federal COVID-19 federal relief package that was passed in March of 2021. And it provides one-time funds to school districts through the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, or ESSER 3 grant program. I've created a table here just kind of showing an overview of the 3 different ESSER grants that we've received and then the associated act with them. So the original one was ESSER 1. We got $110,000. We spent that on educational technology last year to allow us to do virtual learning, and when we had Wednesdays at home. So we bought a lot more Chromebooks. We had to get webcams for teachers to do virtual lessons. So we've spent that money already. That was all spent last year. Then we've got ESSER 2, which we've budgeted a good chunk of it, again on additional educational technology, but also on air handling units to improve ventilation in the building. And then also we've had increased substitute teacher costs with teachers being out, many people out with COVID or quarantined and things like that. So we've budgeted a lot of that. And so now we're on ESSER 3. And whereas the first 2 ESSER grants didn't have very many didn't really have too many requirements or steps that we had to take, ESSER 3 does have a couple. So if we can, ESSER 3 actually spans the next 2 school years. So we have to spend everything by the end of June 30th, 2024. We've got $981,000. We haven't budgeted anything yet, and that's kind of what we're doing right now, trying to get feedback from stakeholders. You can switch the slide, Connie. So the first 2 ESSERs didn't really have too many restrictions. ESSER 3 does. One of them is that school districts have to spend a minimum of 20% of the ESSER 3 funding to implement evidence-based intervention strategies, or EBIS. So there's a lot of acronyms, in schools. So EBIS, which addresses learning loss, so that's one requirement. And then the other one is that for ESSER 3, we had to get input from various stakeholder groups. So tomorrow we're meeting with the Student Senate to get kind of their feedback on what are needs that have come up with due to the pandemic and what's the best way for us to spend the funds. We're holding a session tomorrow as well for families and community at 5 p.m. here in the LGI. And everybody's welcome to attend that as well. And then we will be doing a virtual meeting with staff on Wednesday to get their input as well. And then by March 11th, so in a little under 2 weeks, we have to submit our preliminary budget to DPI. And then the idea is that you would review that budget or plan periodically over the next 2 school years. And so I also did want to provide a little context. So everybody's hearing about this ESSER funding. We're getting increased money from the federal government, but the vast majority of our budget comes from local property tax dollars and state aid. And it just so happened that the 2021-2023 state budget, they do a biennial budget over 2 years, froze the per pupil increases on the revenue limit for this current school year, 2021-22 and 2021-23. So while we are getting increased money from the federal government, we aren't getting any increased money from the state government. So what does that mean for us? Well, for this year, had we received historically, or the recent trend has been about a $200 increase on the revenue limit. So had we received that this year, we would have gotten an additional $213,000. We did not get that. Obviously, we have ESSER funds that kind of help make up for that loss. But then next year, there's also no increase on the revenue limit. So we will not get another $216,000 approximately for a compounded loss of $430,000. And so that shortfall kind of continues into future years unless in the 23-24, and that's where I have that question mark, the state were to go back and increase the per pupil amount by 600, it would make up for these two frozen years. But we don't know what they're doing at this point. I want to be conservative and think it's going to be at the $200 mark, but then that still leaves us with that $430,000 compounded revenue loss. And so I just bring this up to kind of say there's still a lot of unknowns at the state funding level, like what's going to happen in the 23-24 school year. We have the unknown about the referendum as well. And so I just bring this up to say that there's a lot of things that are still going on, and as we get more information after the election next month, or in April, and as the state budget picture becomes clear, then we can go back and adjust our ESSER budget. But we have to keep that in mind because the ESSER dollars are one-time dollars, meaning once they're spent, they're no longer there, whereas the revenue limit is kind of a base building amount that we get each year. So just wanted to keep that on everybody's mind because people keep thinking, we've got all this extra money, but we're also not getting any increase from the state. And then we also have the referendum. So there's a lot of moving parts. And the presentation tomorrow with for families in the community, and then the one with staff goes into a little more detail. But the staff one will be recorded and shared out with all staff and the board, so you can watch that presentation at your leisure as well. So.
And I think it does drive kind of a conversation a little bit around, do you look at things that are above and beyond what we would typically have done, which would be really nice to do, but at the same time that can become very difficult if we don't get that increased funding down the road and we don't pass the referendum. So really trying to look for a way to take that money and put it towards something that is needed, might come out of our regular budget, but gives us some flexibility down the road if, for example, the referendum doesn't pass, or the state doesn't come back through and kind of make up that difference from those federal funds that they, in terms of the biennial budget. So, okay. So then committee reports, just basically in looking at the minutes from the Building and Grounds and then Policy and Community Relations, we really just spent time talking about the upcoming referendum and reaching out to the community and getting some of the information and presentation that you saw on the website at those different meetings. So at this point, I'm not recommending a committee meeting. I know you have a lot of meetings coming up with the new superintendent. And I think at this point, if there is a need potentially for another meeting related to the referendum, it probably should be a full board, but I recognize that would be very difficult as well. Upcoming, our next regular school board meeting, though, is not until March 29th, which is literally 5 days before a very important election. So as much as I'd like to say we're going to try and stay away from having another special board meeting, it's very possible we may need to pull something together in between. It's going to be a very busy time. So. Sure.
Normally the administrators.
So I didn't put administrative reports on this time.
Just didn't want them to be forgotten about. Great, then I move to adjourn the meeting at 8:01 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and we are adjourned. Thank you.